We're 3 games into the Tiger season. And it was not encouraging at all. Outscored 21-3 in 3 games at Tampa. 95 at bats. They struck out 10 times per game offensively while walking twice per game. The whole command of the strike zone thing that Scott Harris is selling. I don't expect, nobody should expect results just like that. But that's clearly not the formula. In the meantime, they hit 147 over the weekend. And let's face it, they're facing a much better team and a much better organization to open the season. And then they go to Houston, expected to win the American League West. It was a brutal start. But Gator, I guess I'm not, I don't feel let down. I don't feel disappointed because it's about what I expected. It's about what I expected. I mean, what I'd like to see is Torque, going 5 for 10 on the weekend, or Riley Green going 5 for 10 on the weekend. But, quite frankly, I don't want to kill any hope, but did we really expect much more?
I expected more. I don't know if I expected them to win a game against Tampa, but I expected more offensively from what we saw based on what the team had done in spring training. This was a team that hit the ball out of the park with regularity during spring. And I know it's only spring, but having 46 home runs in 32 games, that's a lot. Because the team last year that took the field had 116 home runs in 162 games or whatever hell it was. And they were well below a home run per game. And in spring, they were well above a home run per game. And what did we see? It was the one home run from Jake Rogers yesterday late in the game. Normally I'm somebody who's going to try to pull some silver linings out of the clouds here, but I can't do it. Other than I'll just say this: it is early. It's 3 games into it. I expect better. They were horrible in all facets of the game. I was disappointed with plate discipline. Some of that, I even hesitate to say that because it was such a high strike zone yesterday, but it's that way for both teams.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess the lone bright spot, you mentioned the Tigers struck out 30 times in the game. You look at
the weekend.
Yeah, over the weekend, sorry. And you look at what Tampa Bay did, and Tampa Bay struck out 26 times, and they didn't have their last at bat in any of the 3 games. All right, so they struck out at a higher rate than the Tigers did, actually. But they didn't even get their last at bat.
Right.
These games are cranking along, right? 2 hours, 14 minutes for the first one. I forget what the second game was, but I feel like yesterday's game, I got to go back and look back at it, but it had to be 2 hours and 10 minutes or something.
Well, when one team isn't scoring, plus the pitch clock, all that matters.
Yeah, and you don't have to pitch the bottom of the 9th inning. Yeah.
The only thing that really disappointed me, was Spencer Turnbull. I've always been a Spencer Turnbull fan. I just feel like he's got the stuff to be something good, something really good. But obviously health has been an issue. And now, I mean, that, to debut the way he did, that was one thing that really failed to live up to expectations. And part of me is maybe I should be more disappointed in Torque. But the reality is, I guess the Avila era has really lowered my expectations for what he brought in. Now, it kind of resets at 0. I guess I'd be really mad today, as irate as Radio Doug can be. We're not yellers and screamers as much, but I'd be really irate today if Al Avila were still in charge. But because he's not,
right,
I feel like, okay, leftovers and remnants of a disappointing era are still here. They haven't had time to replenish. Scott Harris did not come in hot, which is fine because, a GM that comes in hot signs a bunch of free agents, makes a bunch of trades. He's come in, quiet, observing. Now that doesn't mean he's off the hook a year from now. There's going to be some things that you need to see, but there's no transfer portal in MLB. You can't get healthy quick if your organization is really bad.
There is. It's free agency, but you have to spend money to do it. And they didn't do that this offseason. They'll have plenty of money to spend if they'd like to. We certainly hope that they will. And everything Chris Hill just said over the last couple of years says that, spending money is not going to be a problem. They're willing to spend money. Well, Miguel Cabrera comes off the books after this season. You might have an opt-out from a couple of your players who are second and third on the payroll. And if they were to opt out, you've got a whole mess load of money
you can do it
that you can spend and try to make this team better. And then in 2024, you're also hoping that Skubal and Mize are back in the rotation and healthy and ready to compete. You got another year with development with some players that might be knocking on the door to come here to the big leagues. And hopefully by the end of this year, you've got an improved Torkelson and Green and Carpenter and the rest of them. I'm not as disappointed with Torkelson as most people are, because I think he's just picked up where he's left off in spring training, where he's hit the ball hard and he's got little to show for it. He has the one hit in the 3 games, but in the first game, I think he was 3 out of the 4 at bats, or maybe it was all 4 at bats. He had exit velocity of over 100 miles an hour. But people go, well, it's just ground balls. Yeah, okay, great. But he is hitting the ball hard, and this is one of those stats that all you stat heads love to throw out there, that is something that is supposed to be a pretty good predictor of what type of hitter you are. Give it more time than just 3 games with Spencer Torkelson, and I think we'll be all right there. Because it's not like Riley Green had a better weekend. He had one more hit, and he did draw a walk, but he struck out 4 times. To me, it was just a disappointing weekend because it's the start of the season. You always start the season with some optimism, even if it's just limited optimism. To me, it was going to be the starting pitching. To me, I think that they have like 2.5 starting pitchers right now out of the 5 rotation spots. And 2 of them got a chance to pitch over the weekend, and one of them was horrible. And that was Spencer Turnbull. Rodriguez in the first game was really good. Then it took him out of the game. He left the guy on base, and the bullpen didn't do the job, and he gets charged for a couple more runs. But I thought, by and large, Eduardo Rodriguez pitched really well. And then you get Joey Wentz yesterday. He looked great. The 4 innings, he gave up the solo home run. Not a problem. Gets into the 5th inning. Gets in and out of the 5th inning. But then the 6th inning, everything unravels, and he can't get guys out that take him out. The bullpen comes in. They don't get the job done. And it's the biggest fear you have about this team going into the season was the bullpen, and it's realized. And then on top of that, the starting rotation hasn't been much good either.
Well, we've used this term before, and it can be true. And I think the Tigers did this a couple of years ago. You can be bad, but interesting. This weekend wasn't particularly interesting.
I don't know.
They didn't make us like yesterday's Red Wing game was interesting.
Yeah.
And it would have been interesting even if Toronto had come back and won the game. It would have been interesting because you got a glimpse of what the future may hold and what could be in the pipeline, if you will.
Plus, it's only 3 games, so it's not like you've got a 10-game sample size or a 20-game sample size to say, I've had enough of this guy.
Right.
I'm not going to say it after 3 games. I mean, what I want to say desperately is, would you stop taking Kerry Carpenter out of the lineup and just play him? But he's only played 1 of the 3 games. He had 2 doubles. He can hit. He can flat out hit.
Well, hey, you can't exaggerate.
I'm not going to overreact.
All right, easy. That's what I was going to say.
Overreact.
You can't have it one way and then have it the other way.
I'm not going to overreact, King. I'm okay.
These guys don't suck, but that guy's awesome.
It's just 3 games.
Right? I mean,
best players only played 1 of them. I'm okay.
Yeah, right? Well, the scary part is, guys, it's not just the 0-3. I think people knew they were going to be pretty bad this year. It's the big picture. It's the fact that
21-3 is what it is.
Well, those that thought that this isn't a full rebuild, I know it's only 1 series, but they're thinking this is a complete rebuild. Like Torque and Green, I know it's only 3 games. They haven't done anything. The pitching looks pretty bad. This is a complete rebuild? Question mark, question mark, question mark?
It's a bad series.
It also feels like baseball rebuilds take longer than any other.
Well, they can.
And if you are going to be a big player in free agency, which the Tigers were at one point, it feels like you got to get close before it's justifiable.
Well, they're building blocks, right? I mean, you look back when Dave Dombrowski did it, he started with building blocks. He started slow. Here's Rondell White, here's Fernando Vina, and then Pudge Rodriguez, right? Yep. Was the third one added to that after those first 2 guys. Then you added Maglio after that. And okay, you've added a couple big. Now Vina and White didn't stick, but obviously Pudge and Maglio did. And you couple that with some high draft picks that you hit on. You hit on Verlander. You hit on Porcello. The time, you develop someone like Zamaya, and it started off. And then you make the big trade to get Cabrera. And that was like every year you're adding somebody else, adding Gary Sheffield, adding Prince Fielder, going for David Price, and let's go out and make a trade for Doug Fister and all that. I mean, they started doing exciting things because they got good, but you had to add the building blocks to start things. And this team has yet to put those building blocks out there because Javi Baez ain't a building block right now. Eduardo Rodriguez, you feel like if he has anything of a decent season, he's going to opt out and get another contract elsewhere.